How many times you lowered your standard just to be accepted? If that sounds familiar, this video is for you. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every person's life when they are asked, whether directly or silently, to shrink, shift, or silence who they are to make someone else more comfortable. That time may come in a boardroom, a classroom, a relationship, or even in front of a mirror. But when it does, I urge you to remember this. Do not negotiate who you are. You are not a compromise. You are not a diluted version of someone else's comfort zone. Your identity, your values, your truth, these are not up for debate. The moment you allow someone to redraw the lines of your character to suit their expectations is the moment you begin to vanish. People may ask you to soften your voice, just to step back so they can step forward, to laugh less, dream smaller, or love quieter. They may label your confidence as arrogance, your ambition as aggression, your clarity as defiance. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. You were not born to be edited. You were born to be expressed fully and unapologetically. So when the world offers you approval in exchange for erasing pieces of yourself, I hope you refuse that deal every single time. We don't thrive by fitting in. We thrive by standing firm, by honoring the parts of ourselves that some may never understand but must always respect. So speak as you are. Walk as you are, lead as you are. Because authenticity is not only power, it is freedom. And no matter how loud the world becomes, your voice, true and unwavering, deserves to be louder. Do not negotiate who you are, not today, not ever. The most powerful thing you will ever own in this life is not your reputation, your resume, or even your relationships. It is your identity, the core of who you are, your values, your voice, your boots, your beliefs, your scars, your triumphs. These things are not decorations, they are foundations. And if that foundation begins to crack because you're constantly adjusting it to fit into other people's molds, you will find yourself living a life that looks perfect on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Staying true to your identity is not an act of arrogance, it is an act of survival. Because every day, the world offers you subtle contracts. It says, if you just tone that down, we'll like you more. If you pretend to be less than you are, we'll let you sit at the table. If you quiet your truth, we'll give you applause. And the danger is, sometimes we sign those contracts without even realizing it. You tell yourself, I'll just change a little, adjust this once. It's not that big a deal. And before you know it, you're building a version of yourself that is less about what you believe and more about what others expect. You're negotiating the terms of your existence to match someone else's comfort. And that is a losing deal every time. Because here's the truth. Anyone who only respects the version of you that's watered down isn't respecting you at all. They're respecting the mask. And no matter how well you wear it, it will always be exhausting to maintain. Your identity is your compass. It guides your decisions, your boundaries, your relationships. The moment you give that compass to someone else, you're no longer steering your own life. You're just being directed. And a life directed by others is a life detached from purpose. So when I say do not negotiate who you are, I don't mean don't grow. I mean don't evolve. I mean let your growth be yours. Let your evolution be rooted in your own values, not in someone else's fear of your strength. Because the world doesn't need more people who fit in. It needs more people who show up as they are, completely, courageously, consistently. Let's talk honestly about comfort. Not your comfort, but theirs. There will be moments in life when people will not be threatened by your failure. They will be threatened by your light. Your confidence will make some uncomfortable. Your passion will unsettle others. Your presence, just you being fully yourself, will be too much for those who have built their world around control, predictability, and sameness. And in those moments, they will not always ask you to dim directly. They may not use words at all. Instead, you'll feel it in the side comments, in the avoidance, in the tension that suddenly fills the room when you speak too boldly, dream too big, or stand too tall. And the temptation will be there, the urge to adjust, to shrink, to become less expressive, less opinionated, less vibrant. Not because you believe you're wrong, but because you don't want to make them uncomfortable. But let me ask you, why is their comfort more valuable than your truth? We live in a world that has normalized silencing people, especially those who break the mold. Whether it's how you speak, how you look, how you love, or what you believe in, there's always someone ready to hand you a mask and say, wear this instead. In the moment you take that mask and start performing someone else's idea of acceptable, you begin to erase yourself in tiny, quiet pieces. Not all at once. No, it happens subtly. A joke you don't tell, an opinion you hold back, a talent you downplay, an identity you hide. And with each edit, you disappear just a little more. It's not just a matter of self-respect. It's a matter of integrity. Because changing yourself to make others comfortable is a short-term solution with long-term damage. You might gain approval, yes. You might get the job, keep the relationship, avoid the conflict. But what cost? Living in someone else's shadow doesn't just steal your light. It robs the world of the unique fire only you can bring. Comfort is not the measure of correctness. Just because someone is uncomfortable with your truth doesn't mean you need to change it. Their unease is not your emergency. In fact, sometimes discomfort is necessary because it means you're challenging the status quo, shaking old systems, and making space for something new, something honest, something necessary. So the next time you feel that pull, that subtle suggestion to be a little less, to hide the parts of you that don't fit in, pause and ask yourself, am I changing because I want to grow or because they can't handle who I am? Only one of those reasons leads to freedom. The other leads to a slow, silent kind of erasure. We need to draw a very clear line between compromise and erasure because too many people confuse the two. And that confusion can cost you your sense of self. Compromise is a natural part of human connection. It's the art of understanding, of meeting others halfway without sacrificing your core. It's when two people or two ideas bring something to the table and agree to shift together. It's mutual, it's respectful, it's balanced. But erasure is something else entirely. Erasure is not meeting in the middle. It's you walking all the way to their side while they stand still. It's one-sided, it's silent, and it's dangerous. Because over time, it convinces you that who you are is too much, too loud, too complicated, and therefore needs to be hidden. Let's be clear. When someone asks you to reconsider a choice in the spirit of mutual growth, that's a conversation. That's a compromise. But when someone tells you to change something essential about yourself just to make things easier for them, that's not growth. That's submission. That's the beginning of self-erasure. You may start by giving up small things. A hobby you love, a cultural practice you hold dear, a belief you once defended. You may stop speaking certain truths because they make others uncomfortable. You may wear the clothes that are expected, follow the path that's approved, laugh at the right moments, agree with the safe opinions. And the world might applaud that version of you. They'll call you agreeable, well-behaved, even admirable. But deep down, you'll feel the silence of everything you've buried just to keep the peace. Erasure doesn't always come from loud demands. Sometimes it comes from subtle praise, the kind that rewards you only when you disappear. And that's when it gets dangerous. Because the more praise you get for not being yourself, the more you start to believe that your real self isn't worthy of love, respect, or success. That is the trap. That is the lie. And too many people live entire lives inside that lie, smiling, performing, pretending, while their true identity gathers dust in the dark corners of their soul. Let me say this plainly. Compromise should never cost you your identity. It should never silence your spirit. You can be flexible without being erased. You can grow without abandoning your roots. You can collaborate without vanishing. True compromise is rooted in equality, not sacrifice. It asks, how can we both be seen? Erasure asks, how can you disappear for my comfort? And those are two very different questions with two very different outcomes. If you're constantly adjusting, editing, or hiding essential parts of yourself just to be accepted, that's not compromise. That's conformity masquerading as peace. And peace that comes at the price of your identity is not peace at all. It's quiet suffering. There is something powerful, even radical, about choosing to be unapologetically authentic in a world that is constantly trying to make you question yourself. Because from the moment you begin to show who you truly are, the world will begin to push back, not always out of cruelty, but out of habit. Society is comfortable with predictability. It's designed to reward people who play their part, follow the script, and stick to the mold. But authenticity does not follow a script, it rewrites it. Authenticity doesn't ask for permission, it simply shows up. And when you decide to walk into a room and refuse to shrink, refuse to hide your background, your beliefs, your voice, or your truth, you will absolutely make some people uncomfortable. But that discomfort, that's not a reason to stop. That's proof you're doing something real. Being unapologetically authentic does not mean being rude, reckless, or dismissive of others. It means you carry your truth with dignity. It means you stop apologizing for how you think, how you look, how you speak, how you lead, how you love. It means you no longer betray yourself just to make others feel better about not doing their work. It means saying, "This is me," not the version you imagined, not the version that plays safe, not the version that blends in, but the version that is raw, real, and rooted. When you choose to be authentic, you give others permission to do the same. You become a mirror that reflects courage. You stop performing and start living. And yes, that comes with risks. You may lose people. You may be misunderstood. You may be criticized. But what you gain is far greater: alignment, self-respect, clarity, and peace. Because there is no peace in pretending. There is no joy in being liked for a version of you that doesn't even exist. And the love you receive while wearing a mask will never feel as fulfilling as the love that finds you when you're showing up exactly as you are. Unapologetic authenticity is not just about external expression. It's about internal alignment. It's when your values, your words, and your actions are in sync. When your soul is no longer at war with your behavior. When you can finally look at yourself, no filter, no disguise, and feel proud, not because you're perfect, but because you're honest. Some people will admire it. Some will reject it. Some won't know what to do with it. That's okay. You weren't made to be understood by everyone. You were made to be true to yourself. And truth, when lived without apology, has a way of lighting fires that even silence can't extinguish. One of the hardest and most liberating truths you'll ever have to embrace is this: you can be completely true to yourself and still be misunderstood. And that's okay. In fact, sometimes it's inevitable. We live in a world obsessed with labels, boxes, and categories. People want you to be simple, familiar, easy to define. Because if they can define you, they feel like they can control the narrative. But authenticity doesn't fit neatly into categories. It spills over. It challenges assumptions. It disrupts the expected. And when you show up as the fullest version of yourself, especially when that version doesn't fit the mold, people may not get it. They might criticize, question, or judge, not because there's something wrong with you, but because they haven't yet learned how to see what they've never seen before. There's a kind of quiet strength in allowing yourself to be misunderstood. It means you're no longer living for validation. It means you've decided that clarity within yourself is more valuable than approval from others. And that's where real confidence begins. Not in being celebrated, but in being grounded enough to stand tall, even when no one claps. Some of the most powerful people in history, the changemakers, the trailblazers, the visionaries, were misunderstood in their time. Their ideas were rejected. Their voices were silenced. Their intentions were questioned. But they kept going. Why? Because their truth was not dependent on the world's permission. They understood that being misunderstood does not mean being wrong. It simply means being ahead of what others are ready to accept. And you, in your own life, will face the same crossroads. You'll have to choose between being accepted for who you're not, or standing firm in who you are, even when that truth makes people uncomfortable. And let me tell you, there is power in choosing the second path. Because once you realize you can survive misunderstanding, you become unstoppable. You stop explaining yourself to everyone. You stop overcompensating for your differences. You stop twisting yourself into shapes that aren't yours just to be liked. You realize that you don't owe the world a version of yourself that makes them comfortable. You owe yourself a life that feels honest. There is deep value in being true, even when you are alone. There is dignity in walking away from spaces that require your silence in exchange for belonging. And there is undeniable power in saying, you may not understand me, but I understand myself. And that's enough. Misunderstanding may cost you some connections, but it will never cost you your soul. And that trade, choosing your integrity over temporary approval, is one of the most courageous acts a person can make. There is a moment, often quiet, sometimes invisible to others, when you feel that internal nudge to pull back, to soften who you are, to tone it down, blend in, stay small. It happens when you walk into a room where your presence feels too loud, when your ideas are met with silence, when your confidence is mistaken for arrogance, or when your difference is treated like a problem that needs fixing. And in that moment, you'll be tempted to shrink, not because you doubt your worth, but because the world has taught you, over and over, that acceptance often comes with conditions. That in order to belong, you must become less. But I am here to tell you, with every fiber of truth in me, do not shrink to be accepted. Do not reduce yourself to be approved. If a space only welcomes you when you are half of who you are, then it is not worthy of your full self. You were not born to be palatable. You were not made to be digestible, manageable, or convenient. You were born to be whole, with your full voice, your full presence, your full power. When you shrink, you rob yourself of that wholeness, and you rob the world of what only you can give. Approval is a moving target. One day they want you bold. The next day they want you quiet. One moment they praise your uniqueness, and the next they ask you to fit in. If you build your life chasing that target, you'll spend your days shape-shifting, never truly seen, never fully known. You'll become a version of yourself designed by public opinion, not personal truth. And here's the tragedy of that path. The more you shrink, the more others expect you to stay small. They'll get comfortable with your silence, your compliance, your constant editing of yourself. And eventually they won't remember or even know who you truly are. But even worse than that, you might forget too. So I'm urging you, as a call to your courage, as a reminder of your value, to take up your space. Speak with volume when your spirit calls for it. Hold your ground when your truth is challenged. Enter rooms without apology. Don't wait to be invited to bring your full self. Show up as if the invitation was never needed. You do not need approval to be worthy. You do not need permission to be powerful. The world will try to tell you that you have to earn belonging by making yourself smaller. But real belonging only happens when you are fully visible. You cannot be loved for who you are if you are constantly performing who you are not. There is no gold medal for the most agreeable. There is no award for the quietest. There is no prize for the person who dimmed their light the best. What matters is whether you can look in the mirror and say, I stayed true. I stood tall. I did not let the fear of rejection shrink my truth. Because once you decide that you will no longer trade authenticity for approval, you become unshakable. You begin to move through life with a different kind of strength. One rooted not in arrogance, but in alignment. So today, and every day after this, let it be known. You are not here to negotiate your worth. You are not here to dilute your voice, mask your truth, or edit yourself for someone else's comfort. You are here to live fully, speak boldly, stand firmly, and walk unapologetically in who you are. Let the world adjust to your presence, not the other way around. Let your identity be a declaration, not a discussion. Because when you stop shrinking, you don't just free yourself. You give others permission to rise, to remember, and to reclaim who they are too. Be brave enough to take up your space. Be bold enough to be misunderstood. And above all, be committed enough to never, ever apologize for being real.